Welcome to Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold, your host. Tune in for what's really happening every Thursday. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. in Studio A on Revolution Radio. They keep us in fear to manipulate us. They want us ignorant so we're easier to enslave. They make us murder one another so they don't have to do it themselves. Only you can break their mind control by hearing the contradictions within your belief systems that allows you to accept their lies in the first place. The time has come for us to remember our divinity, who we really are, to return to what we're meant to be, a service to others, to humanity, to return to nature, and reclaim our birthright, that which is freedom. The truth will sound belligerent because it is in direct opposition to lies. So get angry, because anger is sacred. And together we can unite and rise. Rise from this darkness. Humanity, assemble. And welcome to Thursday. That's Thursday morning coffee rant with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold. I want to start this show off today by saying, humanity, assemble. Because that's what we need to do. Regular citizens of this world need to assemble. So, the coffee I'm drinking this morning is really strong. My friend in Florida, who I'm not going to say his name, likes really strong coffee. This might even be too strong for him if he's listening. Yeah, it's like turpentine. It's like Marine Corps coffee today. Let me take a sip of it. I want to give a disclaimer. It's about 20 degrees outside with wind gusts up to 45, 50 miles per hour. We had a thunder snowstorm, which I thought was pretty mighty, actually. So if all of a sudden I cut out, we have lost power around here. So if I just cut out all of a sudden, more likely than not, that's not me being raided and taken off the air. That's really just an electric outage. And as I always say every week, I want to thank Revolution.radio for giving me a platform to speak on, because I never know who's going to hear me. And maybe one of these days I'll get out there and I'll be able to speak more righteous truth to a larger audience. Because as a former cop on a federal, local, state level, I have certainly seen my fair share of order following and corruption and weaponization used against political rivals. It happens on all levels. I also worked for a medical facility where I got to see, doctors who took a Hippocratic oath that they couldn't help to at least not do no harm, completely do harm, and do whatever the hell they were told, like any uniformed order follower would. And I want to thank, Revolution.radio, which is the number one supporter listener radio show in the world. So if you have any extra to donate, please donate. My show is every Thursday at 9 o'clock on Revolution.radio Studio A. If this is the first time you're tuning in to me, I don't like to give a background on me every time, but I am an ex-order follower. I left the cult. I worked in a prison for 5 years. I was a cop for 25 years, various jurisdictions, including federal. And I've also died twice, had out-of-body experience and near-death experience, and light was involved both times. So there's certain things that I used to call supernatural that as I've begun to research, I now refer to them more as simply natural. And one of the things I'm going to talk about that's been in the news just in the last 24 hours, there was a shooting at a elementary school with 5 and 6-year-olds where 2 students lost their lives. Reportedly, this is on the news, mainstream news media reporting it a little bit. So to me, it's reportedly. Yeah, I can't say for sure. I wasn't there. All I can say is, these events occur, and it seems like in the last couple of years, the Uvalde shooting, there was another shooting in, I think it was Tennessee. I did a full breakdown of what I seen. I didn't see any students. They seem to be happening at these age groups where the kids don't have cell phones like they would at a high school. Because if there's like a shooting at a high school, there's going to be a lot of cell phone footage from kids, from young adults, that are going to be putting stuff out there. So they're not happening at high schools. They're happening at the very young children's schools. I'm still wondering where's everyone else's phones. Like literally, these phones are up our asses. Let's be honest. I don't have to start my day off with profanity, but these phones, everyone has them. Aren't there janitors and teachers? I know some people, they've got their protocols that they have to follow, but I've never seen any footage recently. Not even someone scared talking into their phone. I don't know. I'm not making any accusations that it didn't happen. I'm just thinking it's a little weird. And what was the other big shooting news? Oh, in New York, there was going to be a conference, and the CEO of a major medical insurance company was gunned down. And some of the questions they're asking, because they got video footage of it, it was caught on surveillance cameras. Some of the questions they're asking, was it professionally done? And this guy looked like he knew how to handle, a pistol and da 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 da. Was it a professional hit, or was it somebody who had some kind of grudge? Or here's what I'll say from what I observed: it wasn't a professional. It was not a professional hit, in the sense of they didn't want you to know it was. At the very least, the person did it right in front of another human being right there. They knew they were on camera. They did it as soon as they walked into the camera view. They were wearing a black mask and a very unique backpack, according to reports. And you can see the backpack that the guy had on in the video footage. And then he was caught on one of those little motor scooter bikes, making his escape. And conveniently, he dropped his cell phone. All those big pockets he had, it wasn't in his pocket. He somehow conveniently dropped his cell phone. They were able to find his cell phone. So no, this wasn't a professional hit. This was a hit where they're going to definitely be able to find the person who, quote unquote, did this. There's going to be a lot of what I call false flags coming up, because they want to create red flag laws. So false flags don't necessarily mean somebody wasn't hurt. It just means that It's more like a Manchurian candidate type of event that could be going on. It's just a possibility. Now, people are under stress, and violence does occur when people are highly stressed out. I've written about this, but I just find it, everyone's who gets into politics, they got this sports team like mentation that, our guy won, so everything's okay now. We're going to just table these other things. And I see on social media all the time, people are so happy and gleefully pointing out the contradictions and corruption that's in the other guy's politics. Not ours. Our team won. Go team. Meanwhile, the team that won, that guy signed, he's a billionaire with another billionaire now, Elon Musk. 2 billionaires going to be running the country. The mirroring up of government and the private sector, because that's how it works. And it's not supposed to officially, but this is what they do. They've got their little ways of doing it. I'm letting my little jaded side come out today because I'm actually very effing angry. And there is a place for anger. Anger is a very important emotion. And I'm talking about real anger, righteous anger. Not that frivolous anger that people try to have just to cover up some type of shame or just to cover up some inaction that they know they should have taken, and they get mad at you for being mad at them. That's bullshit anger. I'm talking about the anger of what we're seeing in the world with human slavery. Instead, we'll argue over, is that rocket ship really in space, or is this a flat planet, or is it a spherical planet, and all this other bullshit. I can tell you what it is. It's a soul garden prison planet. Okay, because we are slaves. Slavery is the human condition, and we still are. We're covertly enslaved. They just want to make it overt. We're in a population call and control agenda. So that's one of the things I wanted to just cover real quick that's happening in the news, and it just bothers me. So prayers for all the victims in this world, for all the citizens in this world who are being victimized by their governments. Government is the leading cause of unnatural death throughout all human history. Democide is the leading cause of unnatural death, which is death by your own government. And someone's going to say, oh, he's one of those anti-government. He's anti-government. I'm not anti-shit. I'm pro-freedom. There's a difference between being anti-something and pro-something. I'm pro-freedom. You can't be pro-freedom and pro-government at the same time. It's impossible. Governare means to control your mind. It's mind control. Government is mind control. That's the Latin etymology of the word. Taking another sip of my coffee. So stand up as we start to end this year, as we're coming to the last, few weeks of the year. God, did this year go by quick. It's always time to take stock, and I'll do more of this in probably the last episode of this year. But it's time to always take stock. Hey, what were your wins this year? What were your losses? What could you have done better? And what are your goals? What are your realistic goals for next year? And then you make a plan and you stick to that plan. Be flexible because things are going to be occurring. But, you're not going to, like when I died, I didn't regret things that I did. I regretted what I didn't do, which leads me to something I'm going to read. It's a small article that I came across on Facebook. And this is from a palliative care nurse. So a palliative care nurse, and there's been more than one who've done this, but they reveal the top 5 regrets of people right before they die. So these are palliative care, to me, they're angels who aid somebody in the last month of their life, the last couple of weeks of their life, and you have some time to think. And to be honest, when I've got time to think, if I'm blessed enough to have a little bit of time to think on my deathbed for the 3rd time, I'm pretty sure 3 strikes and I'll be out. I want to be able to smile and sing my death song.
probably be something by Man-O-War. But I don't want to, and unless I get clapped the F out, which that could happen too, I guess. You never know what's going to happen. But if you survive and you make it to your deathbed, you didn't die, you actually die a straw death, which is actually an insult to a Viking. If you tell them their father died a straw death, they didn't die in battle. That's that was like an insult to a Viking. And I can tell you from Cleveland right now, with this fine Norse weather we have going on outside, I kind of want my I kind of want to die a straw death. That means nobody was good enough to effing get me with all the jobs I've done and with what I'm currently doing right now. Hopefully that's the case. But I have been on my deathbed. I know, what I felt. I know that only love and discernment can drive out hate and fear. But I'm going to go over the top 5 things. I'm going to read this. Most times we take things for granted and fail to appreciate what we have until it's too late. Having regrets about things we did wrong and for things that we didn't have the courage to undertake is simply part of the human nature. Sometimes life gives us a second chance. In my case, I'm on my third. To try and make things right. Other times we are forced to live with our regrets and feel sorry for the lost opportunities and possibilities. Have you ever wondered what it is that people like you and I regret the most? I can tell you right now, many years from now, on my deathbed, I don't want to regret not having tried to do something for the children's freedom of this world, for the freedom of this world, for the citizens of this world. That's why I always say, humanity, assemble. We have to unite. There's way more of us than there are of them. Governments murder one another, and governments murder their own citizens and other citizens. This isn't human driven. I've said this before. This is alien driven. Humans are too lazy. It's not our natural state. I see too much goodness in the world. There's more good human beings than bad human beings. Let me tell a quick story. We went out to eat for Thanksgiving last week. There was like 8 and 9 of us sitting down. Something we didn't normally ever do. It was at a Bob Evans restaurant. We're sitting there. My brother was buying the meal. It was going to cost a pretty penny. Mom's not in the best of health. So you never know. Each holiday is probably going to be the last. And there was like 3 people who came. We seen them come, but we didn't pay a whole lot of attention to them. And they didn't stay very long, which was kind of amazing. I didn't even see them leave. Next thing we're told is the bill was taken care of. These 3 people bought us our dinner. And that was a beautiful synchronistic event. It let me know, and I was able to say it right at the table. That proves there's more good people in this world than bad people. Here, my brother was about to do something nice, right, and pay for a Thanksgiving meal for everybody, and karma instantly, he'd been planning that for a couple of weeks, though, but it seemed like karma just instantly rewarded him. All of us. So those 3 people, I don't know who you are, but thank you. But anyways, getting back to what people regret, the top 5 regrets of the dying. It's a book written by Bonnie Ware. Number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not for others. During the last days of their life, many people put all their thoughts on the things they left undone. Reflecting on their past actions is common, and with that comes a regret of not living the life they wanted to for themselves because they thought of what others would think, what others would say. Most people had not even honored even half of their dreams and had to die knowing that it was due to the choices they had made, but more importantly, the choices they didn't make, the chances they didn't take. So sometimes you got to put your voice out there and take a chance. Sometimes you've got to quit that really good job that's destroying your mental health and take half the pay for something you maybe really like or can deal with better. Number two is they wish they hadn't worked as hard. The hectic schedules imposed by jobs we do can often lead to failing to spend enough quality time with our family and friends. Working hard to achieve success, fame, and make money can easily lead to feeling incomplete spiritually and missing on some important events. I wanted to, at one point in time, I did want to get promoted. I just wasn't willing to stab anyone in the back to do it. And I was at work a lot. I missed holidays. You can't get those moments back when you miss them. So, like, my message to order followers out there, you're working double shifts, sometimes more than double shifts, to follow orders, to ultimately enforce the arbitrary dictates of immoral politicians who are going to point the finger at you and throw you under the bus and say, well, I didn't tell you to enforce it that way. Meanwhile, as an order follower, you point your finger back at the politicians and say, well, they're immoral making these laws. I'm just enforcing the law and just doing my job. That's bullshit. You have to understand what morality is for yourself. But understand that you're going to be missing your family. You're going to be missing kids' holidays, nephews, nieces, birthdays. It's not worth it. You'll regret it in the end. Number three, no one's ever gonna accuse me of this one. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Folks, I wear my feelings on my sleeves, and I will not keep feelings in. I don't care if people think I'm too sensitive for a guy. I really don't give a shit. I let it out, and I'm staying pretty healthy because of it. Because if you keep it in, oh my God, you're going to get sick. It's very aggravating. Sooner or later, something's going to give. You got to let it out. So have the courage to express your feelings and be honest. We're coming. These are the years coming up, and this year in 2025 is going to be one of those years. It's enumerated a 9, which is the ending of one thing and the beginning of another. That's the Hermit card in the tarot. And it is going to be the year you speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. Speak it. And research. Do your own research. Number 4 is they wish they had stayed, in touch with their friends. We lose contact with friends. We often think, and I just had this. I told the story, my very first radio show, and how a friend came through in a spiritual medium telling me to forge, which is the Forge is the name of the song that is in my bumper that plays on revolution.radio from time to time. And that was with a friend that I really wish I had stayed in contact with longer. But to any of his family listening, he's on the other side. He's in good shape. I wish I had let myself be happier. Happiness is a choice. Fear of change will keep you from actually making decisions that'll make you happier. If you've been with somebody in a relationship for a long time, fear of leaving them if it's not serving you, people just stay in it the rest of their life and they just give up. To hell with that. I'm never going to settle in that manner, and neither should you. And we shouldn't give up on freedom for ourselves. And we shouldn't be so quick to point out the contradictions of someone else's belief system if you've got a bunch of contradictions within your own. This takes looking in the mirror. You have to look into the mirror. And that's something people do not want to do. People do not want to look in the mirror. Just sit there. I have a wall mirror. Sit there and just stare at yourself. See how well you do. All right. So I'm taking a sip of my coffee, and I'm going to grab my book, Rise from Darkness. Who are they? Where I do give a little bit of an indication on who they are. And turn my light on. Grab my reading glasses, right? And I'm going to read something that's very important here. It's from chapter 7. It's only 10 pages. And it's titled Conquering Fear and Regaining Your Confidence. Now, I wasn't going to read any more out of this, but I just can't help but to do it because it's so relevant to what's going on in the world today. Because we're not going to take correct actions if we don't conquer our fear. We won't regain confidence if we've taken a hit. Your confidence can take a hit. You know, when you got enemies gaslighting you, when you got enemies lying about you, when you've got enemies isolating you, and you doubt your own reality, that's a hit to your confidence. And an enemy wants to steal your confidence because when you're not confident, you won't be competent. And do you think that the evil in this world wants the citizens to be competent? I got another thing coming. If you think so, there's a bridge to sell. It's a pretty snowy bridge right now in New York, but I got a bridge to sell if you think they want a confident enemy. So needless to say, in my life, with some of the things that I had happened to me when I was working in, and I talked about my dark night of the soul, I had my confidence shaken. And it took me a while to start getting it back and kind of return to myself and remember who the F I am and what I've been through and what I'm going to become. Even if I become nothing, I've put my voice out there. I've written 2 books. At this point, I've lived a good life. But so I had to regain my confidence. To regain my confidence, I'm going to be reading out of this. To regain my confidence, I understood that I first needed to lose the fear of everything I feared to lose. I'll say that again. I needed to first lose the fear of everything I feared to lose. For me, this meant leaving my family for a 2-month hiatus or sabbatical, well over 1,000 miles away. I was beginning to understand that everything we want lays just on the other side of fear. It will be impossible to evolve, improve, and rise from darkness without having a willingness to be both honest and vulnerable. I wanted no distractions as I worked through the emotions of my mistakes and regrets. For some reason, we as human beings spend an inordinate amount of time reliving past misfortunes, wishing we would have done something better or something different, or somehow had more control over. This, I have realized, is not only a waste of precious time, but it serves only to relive unchangeable trauma. We cannot change the past. Remember, if anyone ever asks you, what is truth? Truth is that which has already occurred. So the best way to get into the present moment is to get busy. Start doing things. Take action. You want to regain confidence? The only way to regain confidence is in taking action of some kind. So I left my environment. I studied, I wrote, and most importantly, moved to get out of my head and into my body and training. Being in a new environment is the absolute best way to begin any new personal improvement endeavor. This is especially true if your old environment is where you engaged in any unhealthy coping mechanisms. I had looked into retreats that had an emphasis on personal improvement of both spirit and fitness, but they were insanely expensive, upwards of $10,000, some as high as $18,000 or more for even less time than a whole month in many cases. Honestly, how can the average person hope to afford that? And I'm not saying that some of those programs aren't good, but they're taking advantage of people's pain. For $3,000. I was able to spend 2 months someplace. Took care of all my bills, gas, everything, food, and it was enough. Okay, so the very first hour of our day is the most important, if not entirely crucial hour of our day. It sets the tone for all else we do on that day. The creative process, which for me is the process of gathering my thoughts to prepare and present them in a manner which is concise yet interesting and informative, is something that did not seem to happen for me with this book while in stillness. It is said that only in stillness will the sentiment that is muddying the waters settle enough to allow one to see their situation more clearly. For me, however, it is only in movement that I can see clearly and find clarity. Only in movement does the great whisperer talk to me. It is only in movement that I can hear what my intuition is screaming at me. When they locked us down 4 years ago and didn't want us gathering at bars or bowling alleys or anything else where we could get together and talk, you think they wanted us to have movement? So continuing, is it a coincidence that it is also only in movement or in the taking of action that we can regain and maintain our confidence? I think not. If I were to relate all the spiritual synchronicities which I have experienced in the last 3 years, there would be no way to present them all in only one book, and that is the truth. It is important, although everything in this book is the truth. Let me get back to reading here. It is part of my creative process to determine which details to share as to be understood sequentially and not sound completely insane. This is not to mention that attempting to do so would really be making this book about me, and this book is not about me. I just happen to be in it. This book is really, in a nutshell, about rising from darkness because you realize what true morality is, what objective morality is, what cause and effect and karmic law, natural law is, God's law. That's what the book's really about. Let me take a sip of my coffee real quick. I'm trying not to sneeze. I'm trying not to sneeze on the air. I don't know how that'll sound if I do. I'm trying to hold in a sneeze. Hold on a second. I want to give a big shout out to all my friends up at Camp Levolution, Truth Mountain. Love you guys. Every Tuesday night at 5 o'clock, Levolution show is on. Highly recommend going and listening to their show. The whole family's there, and it's a cool partnership of the divine masculine and divine feminine. And believe me, they don't want the divine masculine and feminine uniting because we create a world they can't control. All right, continuing. So, part of regaining inner peace and rising from the darkness of depression begins upon realizing that there is nothing that can be done to change the past, and the present cannot be appreciated and truly fully lived when conceptualizing your life for the future. This can lead to anxiety about negative events that rarely actually manifest. Catastrophizing is when we jump immediately to the worst case scenario in any given situation. This is our egos working overtime, attempting to protect us from perceived negative eventualities. Especially if you have gotten into the habit of catastrophizing every happening in your life. Understand, just because it happened before does not mean it will happen again. From a manifesting true law of attraction standpoint, if I continue to place attention on my fears, the universe would continue to give me more things to be afraid about. At this point, you literally must fake it till you make it. So living in the moment should become a focal point to overcoming any fear in any negative situation. We will still inevitably have choices. Talked about this before. Any negative situation, we still have choices we can make. Concentrate on those choices, no matter how minute they seem, and you may find that you are not as powerless as you feel. Humanity assemble. Any little thing you can have control over should be what you put your attention on. This is the beginning of regaining a sense of autonomy, which is the first step to regaining lost confidence and ultimately overcoming fear and anxiety. Action is needed to abate fear. anxiety, and regain our confidence. So you have to take action. For me, action meant training and moving my body to get physical and into my body, thus out of my head, at least initially. I got to tell you, overtraining was something that I did for a while that at times I really regret because my body didn't have a chance to recover. So you're breaking your body down without giving it a chance to recover and build it up. So overtraining in itself could be unhealthy if you do too much of it. And doing things that are new, doing things that scare you a little bit. When I first started doing podcasts back in 2019, they were atrocious. I got better as I went along, but it took a while. Staring into this little dot on this computer screen and talking to myself and looking at myself on the computer, it took a little bit of courage. I had to be willing not to be good at something. It's just like when you go to a jiu-jitsu class, you're gonna suck. You're gonna suck. And it's okay to suck. Everyone sucked at one time. The Muhammad Ali, okay, Lennox Lewis. These guys are a couple of the guys. I'm just naming a couple people. Mike Tyson, some of the best jabs in boxing. Well, when they first started, their jabs sucked, but they had the courage to take that step and go do it. And the same thing when I started this radio show 3 months ago. I'm already on my 13th show right now. That's the death card. Death means change. It very rarely means death in the tarot. It means change. And change is coming for all of us. We got to be willing to adapt to the change, and we got to be willing to resist tyranny and speak out against what these clowns are doing. All right, continuing. Let me see. So I get into this. For me, it meant movement, but not everyone will have the same level of physicality, but movement is needed. For me, this meant getting back to nature hikes, walks with nature, observing the animal wildlife that are simply living, allowing your senses to come back to life for you. Allow yourself to look at nature again in wonder. Smell the trees, the rain, the air, the wildlife, the leaves on the trees being blown in the wind. Listen to that sound. Listen to the sound of your boots as you walk on a gravelly trail. Start to notice the small miracles that are happening all around you. Listen to nature, the movement of the stream, the song of the birds. Walk barefoot. Really feel the earth, connect to it. Feel the rain on your skin. I remember doing this in Florida, and they thought I was nuts. Do not merely get wet from the rain, but really fear it. Really feel it, and don't fear it. Really, I don't know. Sometimes maybe you should. Fear is not a bad thing in some cases. Understand the wonderful possibilities in life through your senses. Remember, we all have senses. We have just collectively allowed them to become dulled and numbed by too much technology. It is vital that you turn off the news, turn off the TV, get off social media. Life is meant to be lived and not conceptualized through a box. Keep in mind, they want to keep us distracted in these boxes. They want to keep us mind controlled through the television that tells lies to your vision. It's a television program, because it programs you. They'd rather have you on OnlyFans and on porn sites instead of actually out there meeting people. Instead of getting together with your friends, let's just say you have this sense of, hey, I've connected with my friends. Remember earlier I talked about the dear friend of mine who I wish I would have kept in more contact with in the past. I'm guilty of that. I'd seen what he had going on Facebook. We had Facebook interactions. That's not the same thing as in-life interactions. Real life, in-person interactions. So much is lost in translation during electronic communications or anything you're going to do on Facebook. But they want to keep us stuck in this 2D. That's how they control us. To regain one's confidence and overcome fear, we must absolutely re-enter socializing again in any small ways possible. That is to put yourself out there and back into social situations while realizing most people are innately good, but just as completely flawed as you are. Get back around people. Shame, fear, and regret in most cases over inaction have more likely than not led to isolation, especially if you have had any spiritual awakening of any kind. It's vital to have human connection, to have our emotions, ideas, opinions, and thoughts mirrored back to us through the eyes and understanding of another person. Changing my environment by temporarily living in another state help my natural curiosity to return. Curiosity for new people, new wildlife, and new areas. Literally everything I did felt new. We must at least temporarily be willing to disregard any negative opinions directed at us, which unfortunately will often come from friends and family. So, leaving my environment took the negative opinions of others out of the equation. Doing this aided me greatly in getting back out again because I had put myself in a situation in which I really had no other choice but to do so. Try getting social at any kind of fitness class, church, or volunteer work. Service to others in some way will aid you greatly in regaining some sense of self-worth. All right, let me continue. I'll make sure I'm not skipping a page here, and I'm not. So I may end up reading across this. I haven't pre-read this chapter. It's been a while, but just in case I didn't cover it, I had spent nearly a month isolated and alone. I was exercising on my own. My fitness level had started to get better. I was getting in shape. I had dropped some weight. I felt good, but I was still very lonely. So I finally, in a different state, decided, well, I'm going to go to a jujitsu class. So I went to the jujitsu class, and wow, that given night, I got to roll with somebody who was only about 6 or 7 months away from being a black belt, and I held my own with him. Actually, he was pretty surprised because I was at a new school. I just put my white belt on and just went there. But I had grappled for a while. We're practicing moves and practicing on, hey, tapping before you get your arm broke or shoulder dislocated, or you have to tap before you get choked unconscious. And there's drilling that's involved with another person, and then you're live rolling with another person. And it was like an hour and a half altogether. And I got back to, where I was staying, and I was just elated. One, I was elated that I did much better than I thought I was going to do because it's been some time since I'd done it. And two, something occurred to me. It was very special. Something occurred to me. I had been missing something. I had been missing human touch, human contact. And believe me, when you're doing jujitsu, there's nothing sexual about it. I'll just throw that out there. But there is a very real need for human beings to be social with other human beings. And we do have a need to be touched. Just because they were trying to break my arm and choke me out or dislocate something, they weren't really doing it. We were just practicing. And as long as you tap, you're not going to get hurt usually. But I realized, wow, I had a very human need just now met through the martial arts. All this stuff is interrelated. It's all interrelated. Okay, so a big part of losing confidence comes from having your opinions, ideas, and emotions invalidated by people you know. So there is a paradox present in doing this, in that you will initially at least be further isolating yourself by temporarily living elsewhere. This, however, makes the necessary space needed to meet new people. It allowed for me to exercise, to diet better by creating new habits in a new environment that I was eventually able to bring back home with me. That's very important because people want to like you in your social circles and they want you to be successful sometimes. They're all for it, but a lot of times not more successful than them. So sometimes people will shoot your ideas down. They don't even realize they're doing it. Okay, so it's important to set measurable goals. Dropping a bit of weight, for instance, if needed, and becoming healthier can bring a sense of accomplishment that will do wonders for rebuilding lost confidence. It did for me. This is also a great way to combat the effects of stress. Remember, a confident person is also a competent person. Also, keep in mind that it is your confidence that any adversary of any kind will seek to attack. Be sure to start off by setting measurable goals that can be accomplished in realistic increments. In other words, say you want to lose 70 pounds. This is a big goal. How about instead of the whole amount of weight, start off by setting the goal of 5 pounds? Do you want to be able to do 100 push ups? Work on them every day with the goal of being able to do at least one more rep every week. So you're setting realistic goals in smaller increments and you'll get to the big one. If you set the big one, you're not, there's no measurement, there's no accomplishment. And it's really easy to get, discouraged. And we don't want that. Do your shadow work. I define shadow work as identifying, before I read this, I just want to say, I wrote this. Let's see, Rise from Darkness. I was writing this in 2020, 5 years ago already almost. I started it in 2018. Let's see what I defined shadow work as back then. Do your shadow work. I define shadow work as identifying where one's personal negative impressions originate from. Where is your darkness? And what are your own negative traits? Doing this will require self-reflection and introspection. It is not easy. In fact, most people would rather face death than to admit their own faults. Be cautious of the shadow in doing this shadow work, however, because sometimes we only seek to find fault with ourselves merely to feel as if we had more control in any given negative situation that we may have really had. We must be aware of our own ego attachments. So to expand on part of that is sometimes victims of certain, and I don't believe in having a victim mentality, but sometimes you can be victimized, and sometimes you have something go on and there's some type of argument or there's this or there's that, and then you go back and try to find, hey, how can I have done this better, or what did I do to add to this conflict? And that's just your way. Sometimes it's just your way of trying to have control or regain a sense of control in a situation that was not your doing in the least bit. Okay, that's our ego trying to regain a sense of control. So if you've been victimized in some way, acknowledge it and then go about gaining your confidence back in a healthy way. Not trying to act like you had some type of control in a situation you didn't. Okay, I've seen this a lot with the victims of rape or victims of assault or all this stuff. Sometimes you are a real victim. It's okay. Just go about a healthy way of getting it back. I would define shadow work now, besides what I wrote. That's true, but I also would add to it. It's bringing to the light of consciousness that which was previously unconscious. And I've talked about how I've done that because I didn't even realize some of the bad habits I had were bad habits. All right, let me see here. So I started talking earlier about natural law, and I'm going to continue in this book. I have talked about natural law in this book. You can greatly enhance your life through living in accordance with it. Coming to a better understanding of natural law and objective morality will aid you in bringing your actions into a better alignment with the life you desire, a life filled with positive and beautiful synchronistic events. The prerequisite for this, first and foremost, is having the ability to admit and thus call yourself out on your own bullshit. Okay, you have to be able to admit when you're wrong. We personally, and I also believe collectively, must develop the willingness to be wrong. And in fact, admit when another was actually correct and right. Or we will be doomed to remain in a constant state of conflict of one kind or another. Here's what I'm going to tell you about wisdom. I could wait another 5 minutes or so and save this for the very end, but I'm going to say it now so I don't forget it. I don't have any of this written down outside of my book I'm reading out of. Wisdom isn't the presence of knowledge. I'll repeat that. Wisdom isn't the presence of knowledge, it is the absence of bullshit. Continuing in the book, the surefire path to truly regaining your confidence is not only through action, but through obtaining and understanding new knowledge. This requires research, which comes when truly seeking enlightenment. Okay, spiritual awakenings and enlightenment are two totally different things. A spiritual awakening for me was understanding that there was a God with a capital G and that we are spirit. Enlightenment came through the study and the research I did after I had experienced some things that were definitely weird. I'll just put it to you that way. Hold on a second. I wanted to turn away. I apologize for coughing. I'm probably getting sick because of this fine north weather. It's not the cooties. Okay. So when we start talking about researching, let me get back to here. Okay. Okay, this is when we begin, when we start researching, this is when we begin to understand that once and still mostly occulted knowledge of natural law. When people hear the word occult, images of dark rituals or dark magic usually come to mind. These are fallacious beliefs because of the word occult. All the word occult really means is hidden. Okay, the word comes from the Latin word oculus, clandestine, hidden, secret, referring to knowledge of the hidden. That's all the occult means. So as I begin to unpack and study this new information and understand it, the occult started to become de-occulted for me. Once known, this information had to be shared. The occult, like any other tool, can be used for self-improvement and the empowerment of others and humanity, or as the dark occultists are wanting to currently do, it can be used for selfish and more sinister endeavors. The power brokers or real puppeteers of our world are really in their high positions because they understand how to circumvent the karmic effects of natural law. They understand natural law enough to mitigate its effects through the delegation of their desired immoralities to other followers or mercenary order followers or mercenaries for hire. I began to understand that although they are unable to completely escape the effects of natural law themselves, it is the actual action takers, the order followers, police, military, mercenaries, who ultimately pay the full karmic price for their actions or lack of right actions. You ever hear the saying, live by the sword, die by the sword? Wonder why that is. It's karma, folks. It's real. Understanding anything better will improve your confidence. Okay, so really knowledge and understanding something better will greatly, improve your confidence in everything. Because a new perspective gained in doing so. So understanding anything better will improve your confidence because of the new perspective gained in doing so. Fear of the unknown is perhaps the greatest cause of fear and anxiety. So it stands to reason, obviously, that the more that a person is known, the root word of knowledge, the less fear we will experience. The more knowledge I understood, the more I began to walk in a state of love and discernment. I have heard it said that it's impossible to be in the headspace of fear if you're walking in love, in a space of love. The two simply cannot coexist at the same time. I believe this is a bit inaccurate. I feel it is more accurate to say fear will have less control over you and your decision-making process when you're more aligned and in state with love and discernment. I say this because fear, like any other emotion, is valid and indeed serves an important survival purpose. When in love and discernment state, you will be able to also set healthy boundaries out of self-respect and love, as opposed to fear-based shadow side of boundaries, or what I call defensive boundaries, which are used as excuses to avoid responsibility, such as my responsibility to share this knowledge. The underlying message of this book is about accepting self-responsibility and developing the willingness to be wrong sometimes. Regardless of origins, I believe we are collectively being judged by God's natural law now. I also believe there is hope for a brighter future when we and our collective humanity can begin to better understand and live in accordance with natural law. Man's laws are often arbitrary and purposely complicated and often contradicting over time. God's natural laws are simple. Do not do unto others that which you do not want done unto you. Folks, that's going to be it for today. I need you to think about something. Are we living according to natural law? God bless you. Till next week. Stay safe.